I keep thinking about the recent spoilers from General Hospital, and honestly, my thoughts are kind of messy about it. Not in a neat order. Just things popping into my head here and there. Because the more I look at the situation with Brooklyn, Quartermain, Harrison Chase, and especially Delilah, the more it feels like something very wrong is hiding underneath the surface. At first, I thought Delilah was just another tragic character who appeared for a short storyline. Soap operas do that all the time. Someone arrives in town, they bring some problems, then they die or disappear, and the story moves on. Pretty normal, actually. But this time, I do not know. Something feels unfinished about Delilah, like she was carrying something heavy that the audience only saw pieces of. In that moment before she died, when she told Brooklyn and Chase something important, that moment sticks in my head, because people usually do not reveal secrets right before dying unless those secrets matter a lot. So I started wondering what exactly Delilah knew, or maybe what she was trying to warn them about. Then I remember the tattoo, that small detail people noticed on Delilah's arm. Not everyone caught it right away, but once fans pointed it out, it became impossible to ignore. That symbol looked really familiar, not random at all. It looked exactly like something from the old cult storyline. And suddenly my brain went straight to Shiloh Archer. Yeah, that guy again. I know, officially Shiloh is dead. The town believes that chapter is finished. Everyone moved on. But this is a soap opera world. Death does not always mean what it means in real life. People come back in strange ways. Sometimes they disappear for years and then show up again like nothing happened. Just look at Nathan West. 7 years gone, and suddenly his story connects back into the present again. That alone tells me the writers are never afraid to reopen something old. So the idea that Shiloh might still be alive somewhere, I cannot say it sounds impossible. Actually, it sounds very soap opera. And if Shiloh did survive, then the story about Delilah becomes much darker than it first looked. Because Shiloh was not just some random criminal. He built that creepy group called Dawn of Day, a cult pretending to be spiritual enlightenment, but really it was control, psychological manipulation, people joining because they were vulnerable or lonely, and then slowly losing themselves. One of the people hurt the most by that cult was Willow Tate. Fans still remember that story very clearly. Willow was a follower for a long time. She believed in the group, believed in Shiloh, and he used that trust in the worst way possible. He got her pregnant. That whole storyline was disturbing when it aired. It did not feel like typical soap drama. It felt heavier. Willow was trapped, emotionally manipulated by someone who pretended to be a spiritual leader. And when everything collapsed, the damage was already done, then the tragedy of the baby she lost. That part was heartbreaking. Even years later, the character still carries the trauma from those events. So now when I think about Delilah having the same cult symbol tattooed on her arm, it makes me uncomfortable. Because that cannot just be coincidence. Maybe Delilah was part of the cult. Maybe she joined at some point. Maybe willingly at first. Maybe because she needed help or community. That is how cults usually pull people in. They promise support, belonging, meaning. Then, slowly the control begins. If Shiloh was still alive and running Dawn of Day somewhere secretly, it is not hard to imagine him finding new followers. People outside Port Charles who never heard the full truth about him. Or people who heard it but believed his version instead. Delilah might have been one of those people. And if that is true, then the next thought becomes really disturbing. Because what if Delilah did not just join the cult? What if Shiloh treated her exactly the way he treated Willow years ago? Meaning Delilah might have become pregnant because of him, not because she wanted to. That possibility keeps circling in my head. It would explain why Delilah seemed scared, why she might have wanted Brooklyn and Chase to know the truth before she died. Because if Shiloh was the father, then the child she left behind is in serious danger. Shiloh is not the kind of person who lets things go. When he wants something, he chases it until he gets it. And a child connected to him would be more than just family in his mind. It would be power, legacy, something he believes belongs to him. Imagine the moment Brooke, Lynn, and Chase begin to realize this. At first, maybe they would not believe it. They would probably think it is impossible. Shiloh is dead. That story is finished. But then they look again at the tattoo. They remember the cult symbol. They replay Delilah's last words in their minds. And slowly the pieces start fitting together. That realization would be terrifying, because suddenly the baby they are trying to protect might become the target of someone extremely dangerous. I actually think Brooke, Lynn, and Chase would react very quickly once they understand the situation. They would probably decide to adopt Delilah's child themselves. Not just out of kindness, but as a form of protection. If the child legally becomes theirs, It creates a barrier between the baby and whatever past Delilah had. But even that might not be enough if Shiloh returns. And honestly, I can imagine him returning in the most dramatic way possible. Soap operas love those moments. Someone everyone believed was dead suddenly walking into the room. Silence. Shock on every face. If that happens, the entire town would panic. Especially Willow, because she knows exactly what Shiloh is capable of. People sometimes underestimate cult leaders. They think the danger disappears once the leader is gone. But if Shiloh really survived, he probably spent years rebuilding his influence quietly, recruiting followers again, creating a new version of Dawn of Day somewhere out of sight. Cults do not vanish easily. They adapt. They hide. They come back in new forms. So imagine Shiloh returning not just as a single villain, but with followers behind him again, people loyal to him, people willing to do whatever he asks. That kind of power would make him even more dangerous than before. And the first thing he might want is the child Delilah left behind. That thought alone explains why Brooklyn and Chase might try to erase Delilah's connection to the cult. It sounds harsh, maybe even unfair to Delilah's memory. But if revealing the truth means attracting Shiloh's attention, hiding the truth might be the only way to keep the baby safe. I can picture Brooklyn struggling with that decision. She cares about people deeply, but she is also practical when she needs to be. Chase, on the other hand, is a police officer. His instinct would normally be to tell the truth, to expose the crime, to stop someone like Shiloh legally. But this situation might be too complicated for simple rules. Because if Shiloh really is alive, going after him openly could put the child in even greater danger. And that is the scary part of this theory. Once someone like Shiloh becomes involved again, normal life in Port Charles will not stay normal for long. People will start looking over their shoulders. Old wounds will reopen. Survivors of the cult will relive memories they tried very hard to forget. Willow especially. I keep thinking about her reaction if she hears that Shiloh might still be alive. That alone could trigger a huge emotional storyline. The past never really stays buried in soap operas. It waits. Then it comes back in the worst possible moment. And Delilah might be the key that unlocks all of it. Even though she is gone now, the truth she left behind could start a chain reaction that changes everything again in General Hospital. Sometimes when I think about it, I wonder if the writers planned this for a long time. Maybe that tiny tattoo was not random at all. Maybe it was a clue planted quietly, waiting for fans to notice. Or maybe I am just overthinking things late at night. That happens too. But still, the possibility that Shiloh survived, that Dawn of Day never really disappeared, and that Delilah was caught in that nightmare before she died, that possibility refuses to leave my mind. And if it turns out to be true, Port Charles might be heading into another very dark chapter soon.